Calling the breast community, the American Society of Breast Surgeons is gearing up for its 26th annual meeting, happening April 30th through May 4th, 2025.
In the dazzling city of Las Vegas, Nevada.
This is the premier event for the breast surgery community, bringing together more than 1,700 surgeons, thought leaders, and innovators from around the globe.
Don't miss your chance to connect, learn, and explore groundbreaking advancements in the treatment of breast disease.
Mark your calendars now. The American Society of Breast Surgeons 26th Annual Meeting, April 30th to May 4th, 2025.
And let's make it a year to remember. Visit www.breastsurgeons.org to register or to learn more. We hope to see you there.
Hey listeners, want us to let you know when new episodes are available? Simply hit the subscribe or follow button on the Next Breast Thing podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, join the conversation on our Facebook group by searching the Next Breast Thing podcast group on Facebook.
On this episode of The Next Breast Thing,
it was a young woman who'd been diagnosed with breast cancer and had undergone a pretty straightforward surgery and sentinel lymph node biopsy, had been treated appropriately, had undergone chemotherapy, and was on endocrine therapy. We had become close and were in touch, and she was concerned about an axillary recurrence. And I remember the panic setting in.
When we have a bad day at work, it is rarely, if ever, about us. And it's always about the patient, because we look at that patient and it's our mom, our grandmother, our aunt, our sister, our daughter, or us. We can relate to every patient on some level. And I firmly believe the day we stop doing that is the day.
Our worst days are not the same as what the patients that we are taking care of are going through. And I think it's one of the very interesting, rewarding, difficult struggles that we have as oncologists. This is Carla,
Ellie,
Michael,
Susie,
Sitcha,
and Susan. Welcome to The Next Breast Thing, a podcast by the American Society of Breast Surgeons for the entire breast community.
We're a group of devoted surgeons from different parts of the country,
inviting you to journey with us into the science of breast
through the heart and soul of our breast community.
From advances in procedures and patient care
to personal transformation, we're here to support you.
So, if you're part of the breast community and can't seem to find the answers, this is the Next Breast Thing.
In today's episode, we'll be sharing stories about our worst day as breast surgeons and the lessons learned. But before we get started, let's begin with some personal and professional updates. Michael, what's new with you?
Well, I got to tell you guys, I've got a new grandbaby. While some of you guys may just have babies, I got grandbabies, and they don't live anywhere near me, so I'm trying to keep my wife from traveling to Austin, Texas about every other week. It's getting kind of expensive. Susie, I know you don't have grandbabies. You're way too young for that. Tell us what's up with you.
I don't have grandbabies, but we did get to take care of my grandniece, who's 8 weeks old, last weekend, and that's exciting. And it is always great to be able to hand them back and move on with your day. So my family, we love winter. We love skiing and snowboarding, and we don't have a favorite resort. We love going to all the different resorts in Colorado. Sitcha, tell me about what has been going on with you.
Thanks, Susie. And congrats, Michael, and congrats, Susie, as well. It's awesome, the circle of life. I actually have some sad circle of life personal news. My grandmother recently passed away. So if I could just take a moment, I just want to just say how amazing and strong and fierce of a woman she was, and just how much she'll be missed by the whole family. She lived to 94. We have videos of her dancing at her youngest grandson's wedding just 1 year ago, and she was so lucky to stay healthy and active and independent right up until her death. She has over 13 great grandkids. She was just an amazing person. Everyone called her Jaiji. I just wanted to say, Jaiji, you will be so, so dearly missed. How about you, Susan? What's going on with you?
I'm sorry to hear about your grandmother. It's times like this that remind us the importance of family and friends and really relationships in general, and that life's about living and making memories. So as the new year starts, I think it's a good time to think about that and set some goals for the new year. And those goals should definitely include family and friends and making some memories. So it's an important thing, especially at this time of year, to think about.
Yeah, totally agree. So what's new with you, though?
That's a loaded question. I like to be making plans. I'm normally planning my next trip, whether for work or for business or things like that. So my oldest daughter's going abroad for her semester abroad this year. So already planning several trips there. So
where's she going?
That should be great. To Barcelona.
Take advantage of that. You can travel with them.
Without a doubt. And it's apparently the hot spot this year to go to for the semester abroad. That tends to change country to country. So we will see, but lots of good stories to come from it. Ellie, how about you?
Yeah, so I've got both personal and professional updates. Professionally, I just hired my first PA, so I'm gearing up to get her ready to go. Personally, this year, I really have started to dig in more to meditation. And my goal for the next year is to go more into hypnosis meditation. So that's kind of a next level meditation, and not really sure how it's going to go, but that's on my list. So I'm excited to get started.
Do they still swing like a watch in front of you with that? Is that how that works?
Not at all. You just kind of close your eyes and get comfortable. And then they get you to the point before you're asleep. And then they guide you through stuff, and it's just wild. So
I've been doing a lot with mindfulness, and that could just make you whole. It could just do so many wonders for you. Ellie, how are you going about choosing a PA? It's so difficult to hire the right staff.
She's part of the organization already. So if you can hire someone within that you've worked with before and kind of know the work product, that's obviously the highest quality candidate you could get. It's a PA who's worked with one of our other surgeons who's winding down, and I've worked with her before. She's fabulous. Although it'll be a little change for her to have a younger, newer surgeon with different style and all that, still, she is a great hard worker. I know her work ethic, and I think it'll be a good match.
Ellie, it's going to be amazing. I literally could not survive without my PAs. They help in so many different ways, whether it be personally, if something's not going great in the OR, a distraction to be like, oh, let's make sure Hagen stays happy. It's so important. So it is going to be such a great journey. And it's exciting that you're not worried about training to the organization. What a great 2025.
Yeah. So I have to make a pitch now, make sure that they go through the APP certification course. I can tell the difference of those who've taken the course and those who have not. Their level of knowledge and expertise is just astonishingly different.
Oh, okay. Good to know. I didn't know about that. Carla, what about you? What's new with you?
Well, I will say that all of the APPs in my division have gone through or are going through that course. So I was able to spend time with family over Thanksgiving. So I really spent most of Christmas and New Year's working. I was a little bit of a Scrooge this year, but it was good to get some cases done and kind of hit the ground running with the new year. And then my husband and I finished our goals for 2025. So it's always fun to go back and look at what I plan to do for 2024. I did not have become a podcast host, so I'm a little bummed that I missed that, but I'm thinking maybe some Hallmark movies, kind of move on from here for 2025. So
I didn't get enough of those during Christmas.
You can never get enough. You can never get enough.
Carla, I love how you said hit the ground running. So any athletic goals coming up, and how did your half marathon go?
The half marathon went very well. I ran the entire thing with my brother. My brother is about 1.5 years younger than me. He's a father of 3 kids and lives in Philadelphia. I live in Indianapolis, so we don't get to spend a lot of time one-on-one. And we ran together for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And in fact, a lot of the pictures afterwards, we were kind of in stride. So it was really special. I made it. Every time I do a half marathon, I say I'm never going to do one again. So I'm in the phase of I'm not going to do one again, but there's a good chance I'll be training for one again at some point. They're just too much fun to train for and do. And I like doing them in different cities. It's kind of fun to check out cities that way. Well, that was fun to hear about everyone. And I think it's time that we move on to our topic today. My worst day as a breast surgeon. Who'd like to start with this topic?
Well, I'll start. It's interesting that, a lot of times you throw that question out there and you think, well, what's happened in the operating room, or what terrible outcome did you get? And to be quite honest with you, my worst time was actually in the clinic. I was a young surgeon right out of fellowship, and a patient of mine was about my age. I could really sort of see my life in her, and then realized that I was giving her news that was totally life-altering. The whole curtain came down. I just began to ask myself, why not me? Why not my wife? She didn't do anything wrong, or she wasn't eating the wrong thing or smoking the wrong thing. She was just living life, and all of a sudden, it got totally uprooted. Even to the point where I had to dismiss myself from the exam room and just sort of go out and regather myself. It was that connection of where we were in our lives and how hers has just gotten completely uprooted. It's been, goodness, 20 years ago. It's come up a couple of times, but that was the one where I really remembered it's not me as a surgeon and them as a patient with this nice barrier between. I really began to see the humanity of what she was going through and how her life was just changed forever. I won't forget that.
Michael, I think you bring up such a good point. And the fact is, when we have a bad day at work, it is rarely, if ever, about us. And it's always about the patient, because we look at that patient and it's our mom, our grandmother, our aunt, our sister, our daughter, or us. We can relate to every patient on some level. And I firmly believe the day we stop doing that is the day we should retire, because what makes us special is that we can relate to the patients on that level. And I really do believe that they feel it. So my worst day is not about me. It's about this young woman who came in, had an early breast cancer, did great with the surgery. It was early on in the days of Oncotype, and she had the lowest score at that point that I had seen. She had a score of about 1, which I was thrilled with. And she did great. She got married, leading this fabulous life, and then came in with some back pain. And I think we can all predict where this story went. Diagnosed with metastatic disease and eventually succumbed to her disease. But in the interim, I had moved my practice, and her mom lived in the area and came in to see me. She said, "Dr. Boble, you were here, and I just had to stop in and thank you for saving my daughter's life." Honestly, I walked down the hall after seeing her and just started crying. I couldn't believe, knowing her daughter had metastatic disease, and at this point, her daughter was actively dying. She took time to thank me for saving her life, where in my mind, I felt none of that. I did not feel like I helped at all. She said, "You gave us 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it's going to be."
That is so meaningful. And I think that a lot of times when we have these interactions, like there's such a personal attachment, and it is because, like you said, we can see someone in our own lives. Sometimes when we feel short and come up short, where we're like, I wish I could have done more, or when everyone does exactly what we ask and then it doesn't have the standard results, or a side effect is worse than usual, it feels like there's a personal responsibility to that, when in fact, it's really not, but I still feel it that way.
I think what you said, Susan, resonates with me all the time. Every time I'm stuck in traffic on the way home from work, or your car doesn't start, or you're annoyed about something happening, our worst days are not the same as what the patients that we are taking care of are going through. And I think it's one of the very interesting, rewarding, difficult struggles that we have as oncologists. I always say one of the things I love about being a breast surgeon is that many of our patients do very well. And we also treat a lot of patients who are having surgery to help prevent cancers from happening. And we're doing prophylactic surgeries. And so mine was also a patient who had a recurrence. It was a young woman who'd been diagnosed with breast cancer and had undergone a pretty straightforward surgery and sentinel lymph node biopsy, had been treated appropriately, had undergone chemotherapy and was on endocrine therapy. We had become close and were in touch, and she was concerned about an axillary recurrence. And I remember the panic setting in about what was happening with this patient and this friend of mine. She had an axillary recurrence, which then turned into what was a metastatic recurrence. Seeing that from a physician standpoint, a surgeon standpoint, but also a personal standpoint, I felt sad and I felt terrible. And yet what she was going through was so much more. I don't know that you really wrap your head around those emotions. We hope that we help as many patients as possible. And I'm very thankful for a lot of the great medical treatments that are out there for women with metastatic breast cancer. And we can give all of our patients a lot of hope related to that. But it was tough. What about you, Ellie?
Yeah, I was going to actually kind of piggyback off your story, Carla. So I had a patient. I'm seeing myself in this patient. She looks very put together. She's dressed nicely, and she has this fungating mass. She went to our breast clinic 2 years ago with this mass, and they gave her all of the education that we have. This is a wonderful surgeon who went through all the stuff with her. And she, instead of getting treatment, went to Mexico for a holistic therapy. And now she's 4. She's not resectable at this point. I see this happening kind of more and more. Patients are becoming distrustful.
Did we fail them, or did they make the best decision for themselves at the time? Maybe I'm a little older than you, and I've had several patients like this. And when you ask them if they regret their decision, they do not, at least in my experience, because initially I felt that same way. And I was like, how could I have gotten to them? How could I explain the importance of this more? And the reality is, it's their choice. And I've gone back when they come back and with metastatic disease and say, knowing everything now, would you have made a different decision? And they say no. And in fact, I asked one of my patients, who I was also very friendly with, so it was even more difficult to do this. And she died. And I asked her husband about 2 years later, knowing everything now, and he said, we wouldn't have changed anything. We knew the risks, we knew what we were doing, and we lived our best lives those 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's really interesting seeing this across the United States. This is very common. And I think it hits us hard when it's somehow out of fear or a cultural belief or just something different. People can be very convicted to only do part of a treatment. And it's hard when you can see, especially with an early stage cancer, that if someone does not do a portion of it and it progresses, to then still be there and walk by their side. And I agree. I would say the vast majority of my patients agree. They don't regret the decisions they've made. I've had a few, honestly, that have backtracked. And I think that's because I see them in a wound center, that when they have a fungating mass, horribly painful and the bleeding and stuff sticking. And I see that aspect of it. And I see some people trying to do that late effort. But, I think all in all, people understand and they know what they believe in. But it's interesting. That's such a common theme.
Totally agree. I think patients have the autonomy to make the decisions they make. And our role really is to make sure they have the resources and the knowledge base to make the best decisions that they can make for themselves. And the cases that I've had that are similar, I feel like patients don't regret their decision making. They made their decisions for a reason, just like Susan said. I had a patient say, Dr. Kumar, I am not misinformed. I understand what you're saying. I understand the options, and I still choose to do X, Y, and Z. I think it was important for that patient, for her to hear me say, well, I support you in that, even though I don't agree with your decision making.
I think it's really tough. I mean, I absolutely believe that it's your body and patients have that choice, but I think it's a delicate dance between the information that we have as breast surgeons and the knowledge we have about how treatments affect patients. And for many of us who are very science and data driven, when you talk about kind of, I have the knowledge and I have the information and I'm going to make this choice, and we look at it and go, you have this knowledge about this randomized data and treatment benefits, and we have this relatively vacant area of data, and you're choosing to go with that. And so I think the struggle is to figure out where that patient choice lives and knowledge and the concern about what's going to happen to you in 2 or 3 years. Kind of circling back to you, Ellie, not every patient ends up in that situation, but when you see a patient like that, and when you're talking to a similar patient in a year or two, how are you going to talk with her differently?
Oh, right. And I guess that's where my brain was going, was like, how could we have explained this better to her? We know that the second you tell somebody they have cancer, their ears turn off for the most part, and they can really intake only little bits and pieces of information. So for me, it was just kind of a checkpoint where it was like, okay, do I need to show them more pictures? Do I need to show them a video? Or, it kind of made my brain think a little differently about what I could do better to get through to more people, to avoid this.
I love it. Ellie, have you, did your patient come with a support person?
Yes.
Or by themselves?
She came in.
So I always encourage patients to come with somebody to help reinforce it. And then just don't abandon that patient, even if they're refusing care. See them in 2 weeks, see them in 3 weeks, see them in 6 weeks. Keep reinforcing those points.
It's really important to look and say, I've said it in this way. I've said it in this way a few times. Maybe they need someone else. And that's really where the navigator can come in and follow up, because there's so much going on and we constantly have thousands of balls in the air, literally. So we don't ever want anyone to slip through the cracks. And that's the importance of having your team. So Ellie, for you, you now have your PA, but a nurse navigator, a social worker, all these people help us deliver the best care that we can to a patient. And that care is all different. We can give the medical care, the social worker can give a different type of care, the navigator different. So these things are all really important.
And I think it's also great figuring out and asking people, what is it that you're afraid of? And I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, my hair's going to fall out with radiation. And just asking, what is that barrier? Or learning that they're taking care of someone else in their family, and that is just not going to happen. And then I sometimes also ask, hey, it sounds like you've really made your decision. That's great. Is it okay if we follow up either by phone or maybe you could see the medical oncologist in a couple weeks? And we get it. We understand that this is your decision, but it's also really great to hear all that information because I agree, Ellie. I mean, I think literally people's ears sometimes close and people can read things differently. I even had an attorney say, you never told me about this. And I was like, well, I actually wrote it down. And they're like, yeah, you did. You know, I mean, and like, it's really funny seeing different specialties or patients with different walks of life, how they understand and interpret that information. It is really hard.
Yeah, totally agree. Understanding the patient's motivations and their why could be super important. You know, I have to admit, when I saw this topic, I was like, huh? What do you mean my worst day as a breast surgeon? I thought most breast surgeons like me are generally very happy. Our patients do well. We don't have many postoperative complications, and most of us seem to really enjoy our jobs. So I was like, I don't have bad days. And so I was totally stumped. But then I realized I have a very selective memory. I tend to only remember good things. And I don't know if it's a defense mechanism or what, but my whole life I just tend to forget bad things that happen. So I asked my husband for help. He has a memory of an elephant, and he started remembering some things that I've told him in the past about work, and he reminded me of a patient who really had a terrible outcome with her pregnancy-associated breast cancer. And he reminded me of how awful the COVID pandemic was for all of us and just how difficult of a time that was. It was unprecedented, so much unknown, the effect it had on our patients, not being able to operate in a timely fashion. He's going through all of these awful things that happened. He even reminded me of a miscarriage I happened to have at work. And I'm like bawling now. And I'm like, usually I'm so happy and I can't remember a single thing that I don't like or that's like a bad day about my job. And now I'm crying and I'm wondering why I even took on this role to be a co-host because it's only making me sad. But it was actually a really good exercise to remember some of these events and all these patients that had meant a lot to me. I think that your worst day could be one of your best days if it helps shape the direction and trajectory of your life and your career. And I would really encourage our listeners, if you haven't thought about your worst day or days or times, even early in your career, definitely sit down and do this exercise. The truth is, we're pretty hard on ourselves. We're not perfect and we can't be. The expectation to be is just simply unreasonable. And in addition to the knowledge base that we have and the dedication and attention to detail, we do have to use the systems and the tools around us and the people around us.
We're all at different phases of our career. And, you know, in my current role as a division chief, I think it's important to talk with some of the new surgeons who are working with me. And I've gone through every good and bad experience. I mean, we all kind of talked about our worst day. I've had lots of them, and I'm sure all of us have. And I think partnership and being able to talk to somebody and knowing that you have somebody to talk to is crucial. And I've definitely had moments where I didn't have those people to talk to, and it was much worse than it needed to be. If you're a surgeon and you've had a complication and you talk to another surgeon, I guarantee they're going to go, oh, yeah, I've had that happen to me, or yeah, no, I've been through that before. And I think that's really important. I know it's not the easiest topic for us to talk about, but I really appreciate all of us coming together and really kind of sharing our worst days. And I look forward to our best day episodes. To our listeners throughout the breast community, we're so excited you've joined us on this journey, and we'll see you next time. We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode of The Next Breast Thing, a podcast by the American Society of Breast Surgeons for the breast community.
Join the conversation on our Facebook group by searching The Next Breast Thing podcast group on Facebook.
Finally, the content within the Next Breast Thing podcast represents the views, thoughts, and opinions of the co-host and may not necessarily reflect the views, thoughts, and opinions of the American Society of Breast Surgeons.
Until next time, this is Carla,
Ellie,
Michael,
Susie,
Sitcha,
and Susan. And always remember, if you're part of the breast community and can't seem to find the answers, this is the next breast thing.